Hey Vancouver, welcome back to another episode of Vancouver Real. My name is Mike Zaremba, and always with me is my big brother, Andy.
Hey everybody, that would be Andy Zaremba at Andy Zaremba, Twitter and Instagram. We should probably spell that, right? Or else I'm gonna get people being like at Andy Zimbabwe or something. I had this guy in university who kept calling me Zimbabwe for like 2 years. And I kind of liked it. It kind of became my nickname. It was fun.
I think we're going to call you Zimbabwe for
it's
the next 60
Z-A-R
minutes.
or Z if you're in America. Z-A-R-E-M-B-A. That's my Twitter and Instagram.
Always we're
I gotta
here
switch.
podcasting out of Float House at 70 West Cordova Street, floathouse.ca for all of your flotation needs. And if you want to try it out, if you haven't tried it, you can use the promo code. Let's use... my default's recovery. I'll always go to that. Use the promo code recovery, and you'll save 20% off a single float. So come and check it out. Come and check out what the hype is about with sensory deprivation tanks and
Or lack of hype.
or lack of hype. Mm-hmm. Why do you say that?
Because it's so calming and
Oh,
relaxing.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's
meditative.
becoming mainstream now.
Yeah, for sure.
I see what you're going. Lack of hype. Not stimulating.
Yeah.
Right. Lack of hype. That's right. Exactly. So come check it out. Floathouse.ca. And Omega Point YouTube channel is our good friend Omid, who does all of our back behind the scenes kind of stuff, helps us with the editing, and
He's the
he
brains.
helped us set this up. Omid, if you're listening, thank you as always. And Omega Point YouTube channel is his brainchild. So go and explore what he's got going on there. I think he actually just hit a milestone, 2 million views on his channel. So he's
Badass.
Congratulations to you, Omid. That's a lot of views, and we're getting there. Not quite at 2 million yet, but
Hey, we got 1,000 followers.
we got 1,000 followers, subscribers.
How many accounts of those are yours?
Maybe half.
I
have a lot of free time on my hand. Let me just tell you. Yeah.
That's a lot of Gmail accounts.
Yeah.
And you might have been wondering whose voice was that piping in. And today we have, we're honored to have you here with us, Taylor.
Thank you.
Taylor Conroy is, actually, I don't know your exact title for your company, but it's called Change Heroes. What is your exact title?
Founder.
Founder. Perfect. And so Taylor has started a really interesting company that when I kind of was exposed to it, I was like, this is different, this is new, and this is exciting, and very, very philanthropic, which is always admirable. So changeheroes.com is the site you started, and I think you can do probably a way better job at explaining it than I could. So
Sure.
To start it off, can you tell us what your company Change Heroes is all about?
I would love to. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
So are you going to show the pit stains in this or not? And if you are, I would like you to do it now.
It's no.
Get it out of the way, because people are just going to see it.
Okay, well, there's a story here. I was in a rush. Well, actually, I was on
show 'em on
time.
that camera.
I was on time, and then I had to, rush to get everything ready, and so I was sweating like bejeebus.
But he's against unnatural deodorant products,
Yes,
right?
as he should be.
So they're not as effective, but they're healthier. So it's good.
Well, I don't use any antiperspirant. I just use the salt stick deodorant.
It's badass.
And
Yeah.
as long
And a
as
healthy diet.
healthy diet, yeah, it goes a long way.
Chlorophyll apparently helps bring your body odor down.
Okay.
Yeah, you eat lots of chlorophyll.
Cool.
Yeah.
Stink
That makes
less.
sense.
Well, actually, the float. This is a complete side tangent, but the float guys out in Kelowna, they let people drink a little glass of diluted chlorophyll before their floats to help just get the nasty mouth taste out of their mouth before they float, which is a really
I
good
just
idea.
use water. It works
But
pretty well.
but they're
I just gargle the water that's in the tanks. Is that weird?
no,
It's
that'll-
really sanitary.
I
In
just
fact,
like
you know
to
what?
climatize. Sometimes I look under the water.
Yeah.
You know.
If you actually drink Epsom salts, it's like a what's the word?
Purgative.
Not a diuretic, a purgative. Yeah. So you'll actually, if you're constipated, clear you right out.
In the tank.
No, not the tank.
Oh.
That's an expensive
You
mistake.
change the water, right? Because I have.
When do we need to?
shit
Yeah,
myself in there
change
before.
water.
Right. Whatever. Yeah. So
No. Okay, let's get focused.
yeah.
Change Heroes.
Bring it back.
Bring it back to Change Heroes. Well, and I'm going to say, too, first, your Twitter handle is @ChangeHeroes and @DestroyNormal for his
I
personal.
love that Twitter. That's
probably one of
badass.
the coolest ones I've ever heard. So
Yeah.
Thanks.
now that you guys are aware of that, what the
I
hell
used
is
to have
Change Heroes?
Silly Cat 333, but it just wasn't like on brand. So it changed to Destroy Normal.
Yeah, I think Destroy Normal is a little bit
The way.
cooler.
So Change Heroes, what we're doing is we're building the world's largest community of people that take action through giving. The way that we're doing that is we built a pretty amazing fundraising platform. It enables anyone to raise $10,000 to build a school or library or support anti-sex trafficking work or a water project or girls' scholarships or even homelessness in Vancouver. Raise $10,000 to support one of those initiatives in a matter of days, potentially weeks. We've had a 4-year-old raise $10,000 and took her 17 days. She did it with her older brother, Flynn, who's 9.
Wow. Holy cow.
And we've had people as the eldest was 60. We've had about 350 people run Change Heroes campaigns from all over the world. They funded, now we're just, potentially today we'll fund our 200th project. This will be schools, like I said, schools, libraries, anti-sex trafficking work, community centers, water projects in Nepal, all over the place. That'll impact roughly maybe 150,000 people so far. And that's what our business is. It's turning people like yourselves and myself that would be typically wouldn't get involved in philanthropy for another 20 years. That's what the stats say. We'll do it when we're 55,
Right.
type thing, or older. And so we're making philanthropists out of the millennial generation, which is the biggest giving group to ever walk the face of the earth. 90 million of us. We're all millennials. Yeah. So that's what we do, and it's based on a really simple model. The first couple schools we funded was one person getting 33 of their friends to give $3.33 a day for 3 months. So your social circle giving the price of a cup of coffee a day for 3 months adds up to $10,000.
Wow.
33
That's
people,
impressive.
$3.33 a day for 3
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever said that before.
Yeah.
We started funding schoolhouses. We ended up funding about 100 schoolhouses that way, leveraging some really cool video technology that we don't have to go into now, but it's a very curated platform. And like I said, 4-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 11-year-olds, tons of 20 to 30-year-olds have done it.
So it's pretty like goof proof, as they say. You can basically go online and just set up an account, and if a 4-year-old could do it,
I would
really
venture to
anybody
say
can do it.
even you could do it.
I might be able to. That's might be a stretch. I don't know.
I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Yeah, I'll just try it out first, but maybe I'll get there one day. I'll get there at the level of the 4-year-old.
If you sign up your name as Zimbabwe, then
I can maybe support someone in Zimbabwe.
how cool would it be if like you guys did a joint campaign? It was like Zimbabwe and pit stains get together, they build a school in Ecuador.
Why Ecuador?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
That would be cool, actually.
Wherever
we
they-
could blast one of those campaigns out of the water.
Yeah, I was going to probably wait till he challenged us on the air because I
Right.
was expecting that. But, I think it's going to happen regardless. So, but yeah,
That'd be
because
amazing.
I think we want to do it probably with the launch of this episode.
That's
Get our
cool.
act together would be a really cool way to do it.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
So there you go. It's on. It's already been
It's on.
committed.
It's on the table.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. All right.
Good
You've
at
done your
that.
job.
All right.
Cool.
And just a little bit more detail, when someone raises their $10,000, what happens after that?
Yeah, so what we found is that millennials, to give context, are 18 to 37-year-olds. We want things very different than, we want our giving experience to be very different than the baby boomer generation did. We want to know where our money's going, and not only want to know where it's going, but we want to see where it's going. And so Change Heroes really was born after a trip that I took to Kenya and Uganda in 2009. I was getting out of my real estate career. I wanted to find something I could really sink my teeth into. I didn't know where in the charitable world I was going to end up, but I knew I wanted to be involved in philanthropy. I wanted to be doing something that was going to be of service every day. And I started researching the fundraising realm, and I saw there's these black tie dinners, there's golf tournaments, there's the people on the street with the colored vests and the binder. They're like, hey, do you want to end cancer today? And you're like, no. And you walk by, and I started looking at that, and I was like, wow, what an archaic industry. And it's actually quite boring when you really get into it. Did you know the most successful fundraising, the most successful thing to ever hit fundraising is the child sponsorship model? When you sponsor a child,
I'm doing
$30
that
a month
right
kind
now.
of thing.
Yeah. Plan Canada.
Totally. And no
Yeah.
offense against it, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yet it was invented 80 years ago.
Wow, holy cow.
80
Very out of
years
date.
ago, right? So it's an industry that is just, forget the cliche term, but ripe for disruption. It's ripe for reinvention kind of thing. And with technology being what it is today, it's now possible to scale the one thing that matters most in fundraising, which is this, face-to-face asks. Like, we weren't even sitting here for 13 minutes and you said, okay, we'll do a school. kind of thing. But this isn't scalable. There's only so many people that I can do podcasts with, kind of thing, a day.
Sure, yeah.
You know, so let's say we could do 10 schools a day. Whereas what we've built at Change Heroes, it enables people to make personal videos for all of their friends, saying, hey, I'm really excited, I want to build a school in Kenya with you. Watch this video, it's going to tell you everything you need to know. We embed a video that plays right after that shows people where the school is going to get built, who's going to build it, who's going to teach in it, that it's fully sustainable, that it's got a water project, blah, blah, blah. It answers all the questions that someone could possibly ask about, you know, getting involved with building a school. So it enables us to scale this, you know, via technology.
Right.
And that's what's enabled. Right now, it's about 6,000 people to give from 43 countries so far,
Wow.
and they all give $3.33 a day for 3 months. And then, like you guys said, what happens after? We send out a really cool report that says, here's your exact schoolhouse. This is not just a schoolhouse like the one that you funded or whatever. This is your schoolhouse.
Cool.
And every time we go on trips to Ecuador or Kenya or wherever we go where schools are getting funded, we take videos and we say, look, like, Andy, this is your schoolhouse. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really show people. And this is Michael, and he's going to this school, and this is what his life would have been like before. It was like before, and this is what it's like after getting the gift of education.
Cool.
For example, and that can correlate to water projects. We've gone to Cambodia and filmed really wonderful footage of a center for survivors of sex trafficking, kind of thing. Like this, the methodology works across all of these causes.
Right.
And what we find is that when you give people that experience of seeing what happened to their money, you know, seeing where their money went, they are having the same experience that I was having when I went to Kenya and Uganda, and I got to see where the money was going on the ground.
Yeah,
That's
you know?
huge.
Yeah.
One question I was going to ask you is, for those typical, like, the one I have is like, I'm a girl. What's that one called?
Girl
Plan
Effect.
Canada, right?
Yeah, yeah.
How much of that typically goes towards like the actual chair, or to the destination, to the girl to help her, or
Yeah,
to the
okay.
community to help them, right?
Yeah, the last time I checked, which was, be honest, it was 3 years ago when I was looking to Plan Canada's administration fees, and I believe they hover right around 20%, which is relatively regular. And I think this is a really good question, and it's also a really good opportunity to talk about what's important when you're giving, kind of thing. What we've learned as the general public is you ask how much is going, and if it's 2% is going to administration and 98% is going to the cause, then that's great, you know, because it's as little as possible. And we've also learned that, you know, if 40% is going to administration and 60% is going to the cause, then that's terrible, type thing. But that's one tiny little metric on what's actually happening with the money. Because what if that 98 cents on the dollar that you gave to the organization that's, you know, doing 2% is doing not great work? Let's say they're going in with very little research. They're not actually going to villages that want and need what they're offering, and they're potentially having more detriment, or being more of a detriment to the village than good. And what I mean by that is, about 5 years ago, I was in Ecuador, and we saw this latrine, you know, a bathroom block that way up in the Andes Mountains in Ecuador. And this bathroom block, and it had like kind of caution tape all around it, and no one was using it. And we asked our guide there, you know, what's going on with the latrines? Why is it all taped off? They said, oh, well, a nonprofit came up here and they built the bathroom block, but they didn't realize that the soil up here is very clay-like, and it doesn't have the absorption capacities that are needed for a septic field.
Right.
And so after a year, it got backed up. And they're in the Andes Mountains. There's no septic truck that can come, and there's no like septic crew to dig it all up and redo it, kind of thing. So
Right.
now it's this cesspool of disease,
Yeah.
right? And so, and I don't say that to illustrate like, oh, there's some, you know, you got to be really, really wary of charities. You don't necessarily have to be super, super wary. You just have to make sure to do a little bit of research into where your money's going, and make sure that that charity has a good track record of successful results. And so to the point of that, I would rather my, let's say, 80 cents on the dollar go to an organization like Plan that's doing really, really wonderful work than an organization that doesn't have proven sustainable projects and
Right.
a holistic type of approach.
Right.
So there's other things to think about. So if anyone's listening to this by this point, like now that I've been rambling, we might see a drop off after that ramble started.
No.
Oh, no.
But
they need the facts.
They do.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it is really important to, yes, sure, overhead is important to an extent, not nearly as important as the impact that is actually being made on the ground.
Right. Okay. And so that's something that obviously you guys have put a lot of care into. And correct me if I'm wrong, but so Change Heroes is kind of the platform for people to utilize to collect their money and correct like the friends in that way. And then you guys, with that money, use another organization to actually facilitate the construction. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, an implementing partner on the ground. So Free the Children, for example.
Right, Free the Children, that's the one.
They're wonderful, holistic model. It's based off, I won't go bore you guys with what their holistic model is based off of. That'll go into a little bit of time, but let's just say they have really great proven results in that region of Ecuador that I was visiting before. They weren't the ones who built the latrine block. It was another nonprofit, but they've been working there for 15 years.
Right.
You know, really in good, deep partnership with these communities, really great results, and a really proven track record.
Yeah. Is that the only organization that you guys work with currently, or is there other ones kind of like that?
No, we work with United Nations Foundation, Free the Children, and right now we're probably working with another dozen nonprofits, and we're continuing to scale that out so that we can be doing work in Cambodia and Sri Lanka and India and China, and continue to add more countries with really solid results on the ground so that our donors and our campaign runners, like you guys, at some point we'll be able to go to our site and be like, I want to fund girl scholarships in Ethiopia, you know, and then you can kind of rely on the Change Heroes platform for us to have done a lot of the research into these organizations, make sure they're a wonderful organization that you guys are raising. You guys just focus on what you want to do, which is raise the money and get the reports back from that nonprofit.
Cool.
Interesting. So how much of that $10,000 from Change Heroes would actually end up on site building whatever they're building?
Yeah, it depends on the administration fees of the nonprofit. So it ranges. So with the Free the Children school, for example, it would be between 80 and 84 cents on the dollar would go to the project itself after Change Heroes fees, after Free the Children's fees.
Cool.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah. And is that something, I guess, these organizations that are involved with this type of work, obviously,
and that's taking into account our fee as well as Free the Children's, and joining those up.
Awesome.
And taking that off, just so
huge.
Yeah,
that's fairly impressive actually, and I assume that's something that you assume, like, I know when we're running a small business, we don't have the luxury to be wasteful at all with our with resources, our money, and all that kind of stuff. I can imagine that sort of pressure is kind of put from a different direction, but the same sort of thing for that respect only. Because if you're sloppy and it's like 60 cents on the dollar, then people are just going to be like, no, and then you're not going to have an organization.
Yeah, and I'm a huge, we're a for-profit company. You know, a lot of times we can seem like we're a nonprofit because we're doing work that's in the nonprofit space.
Right.
We're a for-profit tech company, and I'm the first person to say we are in this business to make impact and to make money at the same time. And the reason for that is the people that we have as our developers. You know, we've got a team of 20 people in downtown Vancouver that are working. Our developers are some of the best developers in the world. Our designers are some of the best designers in the world. And the reason for that is because the better the design, the better the technology, the more funds we'll actually raise.
Totally.
You know, so there's platforms out there, crowdfunding platforms that will charge, let's say, 3% or 5% type thing. We looked at our business model and we said, you know what? If we charge 10%, let's say for the first 2-3 years of our existence, we'll be able to make potentially 3 times as much impact because we'll have more money to hire more developers and actually scale our impact.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point that a lot of people, I don't know if they put thought into it or not, but they assume that since you're, contributing towards the welfare of others in this way, that it should automatically be charity. When, I'd rather have a company like that trying to do something to make money. That's how you want to earn your living, and as opposed to making some sort of futile plastic item that really is no purpose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
exactly.
It's just I can see how some people might look at that and be like, oh, you should be a nonprofit, and criticize you guys for that. But I mean, it's just really look at it from a different angle.
Yeah,
this is the kind of companies you want.
What's going to make the most impact in the world? That's the lens that we always look through, is like, what structure do we need to be in place to make the most impact, period?
Mm-hmm.
And so we know we don't want to scale at the rate of a nonprofit. Straight up, apologies to the nonprofits out there, we don't want to scale at 1x, 2x, 3x a year. We want to scale at the rate of a tech company.
Mm-hmm.
We want to 10x every year. We want to 100x our amounts raised every single year. Because when we do that, that's when you see real change happen. We don't want to go from raising $1 million a year to $2 million to $3 million to $4 million type thing, like the typical pace of potentially a nonprofit. Yeah. We want to go from raising $1 million to $10 million to $100 million. You know what I mean? Because because the lion's share of that money is going to nonprofits to scale impact.
Right.
That's what we're here for.
And if there is a profit incentive, then you're going to attract the best people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you don't have this revolving door of people coming in and working for 2 years, like
they
potentially do exactly with a low-paying job, and then needing to leave so they can pay their rent and support their family.
So what's the designation for a nonprofit? Like how much? Because obviously they're taking salaries from that. So how is somebody designated a nonprofit, right? Because I mean, if they're taking a percentage for their salaries, is that regulated in any way to make it nonprofit? You know what I'm saying?
Do you mean how is a nonprofit structured differently than a for-profit?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So So a nonprofit, the way that they make money is typically through donations, right? So let's say there's Float House Society as a nonprofit, and you guys, the Float House Society, you give people floats that couldn't afford floats, for example. That's your mission, let's say. And you guys raised $100,000 a year through donations. Then your executive director would, I don't know, take a salary out of that $100,000, and the rest of it and a big chunk of it would go to your projects. Probably not the best example, saying the Float House Society.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how a nonprofit makes money, is through donations.
But I guess I'm saying, like, are the people at the top regulated? Can they take as much salary as they want, or do they have to be a nonprofit? Do you only have to take like a certain percentage for salaries and overhead and things like that?
This is potentially. Let's be open-minded here for a second, and say maybe this is where the podcast takes a bit of a turn, right? And we really talk about this because, in my mind, the person who's running a nonprofit, let's say who's running a multi-billion-dollar a year nonprofit, I believe they should be making something more in line with what a for-profit CEO is making, rather than what the general consensus of the public is. Whereas, you're a CEO of or you're the executive director of a nonprofit, you should be making, sub $100,000 a year. And this, to be totally honest, is one of the things that keep nonprofits handcuffed and not able to actually scale their impact as fast as they should be able to. Nonprofits, because of questions like that, are not able to take risks. They're not risks, and they're not actually able to be entrepreneurial because they're beholden to their boards and their donors who say, I want every single project to work. The world doesn't work like that. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be that latrine in Ecuador that makes a mistake. And I would rather that nonprofit can report back to the donors and say, look, we really screwed up in Ecuador. We got to go back and fix this thing. But nonprofits typically can't do that because us, as the general public, we expect nonprofits to be perfect. We expect every cent of our dollar to go to the project and to build the project and for it to work perfectly. But we would never expect that in the for-profit world.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so as a CEO, what do they make? Are they regulated? I can't comment on the exact regulations that encompass a nonprofit because I'm not 100% sure, in that I've never run a nonprofit myself. Mm-hmm. But I would say that the more important thought process is, that's a typical question that the public would ask. Well, how much is that CEO making? People are people. At the end of the day, if you offer the CEO of a nonprofit, they're usually called executive directors. If you offer the executive director of a nonprofit that position, you offer $150,000 for that position, you're going to get substantially lower quality people than you would be if you were offering $300,000 for that position.
I think $150,000 is quite generous.
Compared
to
the
average wage in this country,
average
$40,000 a year.
Average wage in this city is $65,000 a year.
Okay, that's in the city.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't find a big executive of a nonprofit living in Cranbrook. You know what I mean? They're going to be in a city. So usually the cost of retaining someone of really high value is actually going to be more. It's a higher cost of living, higher average wage, I'm guessing, in LA and New York and San Francisco. San Francisco and New York for sure, which is where most nonprofits are based.
See, I would disagree with you and say that I don't think a CEO for a nonprofit should be making millions of dollars. No way.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate your viewpoint, mm-hmm. And I have a different viewpoint in that they're running organizations that are massive, super, super complex. And it's not that I'm saying the same CEO, let's say, should be making $1 million a year in a for-profit venture and $1 million a year in a nonprofit venture. What I'm saying is that the quality of candidate that you're going to get inevitably ties in with the amount of salary that person can earn.
I think there's people out there that work for not just salary, though. I think people are out there actually do want to do good for more than just money. And I think that does exist. I mean, and if they're going into it for money, then it's really, what's their motive? It's just like why they're doing it.
And is that person the best person to run that organization?
Maybe. Who knows?
Okay, I mean, I know. We know, based on a society, we know what people are motivated by. If we leaned on the idea that people with bleeding hearts if we left it all up to the people that were just really passionate, like what we talked about before this started, we wouldn't have 1.3 billion people living in extreme poverty.
That's
we
true.
wouldn't have massive gender inequality. We wouldn't have to have these insane revolutions that have to happen in the Middle East. We wouldn't have a myriad of the problems that we have in the world today. And that's the general consensus, is that, well, someone who's like really well-meaning should be able to run that organization, or should be able to take a lesser salary, let's say. My viewpoint, to be totally honest, I think someone running a huge nonprofit and looking at the impact that they're creating, I think they should be making more than a for-profit CEO. I think that it's beyond.
Why do they need that?
That's a whole different discussion of like why they need that. I'm with you. I'm a Taoist practitioner in that I believe, like what Lao Tzu says, only the man who knows that enough is enough will ever have enough. I'm not arguing I make $52,000 a year, and I gave myself that salary because that's enough for me, and I love it. I feel like an abundant life. You know what I mean?
And you're an excellent example of that, obviously. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and the process that I got to this place, I was a millionaire at 25. And I'm saying that to say that I had the luxury of getting to the point where I realized that money isn't fulfilling, and not everyone has gotten to that had the fortune of getting to that point. What I'm saying is that we, in our society right now, we think the CEO of ExxonMobil should make, it's totally fine that or maybe you don't think that he should make it, but we as a society accept that he's making $1 kajillion a year, and what is he doing? He's raping and pillaging the earth. He's ruining Mother Earth that we're standing on right now. And many, many companies are doing that, as we know, in lots of different sectors. We think that the CEO of Philip Morris and the biggest tobacco companies in the world, the CEOs of Kraft and these companies that are legitimately poisoning the public through their products, we think we get it. It's fine that they're making tons of money because they're building a really big company. When we forget at the end of the day, that company is not only not doing good, it's of a massive detriment to the world.
Yeah.
Yet, when we get someone who's brilliant, who's very smart, and running a nonprofit, for example, that is not only not doing harm, but they're actually improving the world. They're improving the lives of millions and millions of people, and that's what they're in charge of. We think that they should take 1/100th of the salary.
No, I'm not saying that necessarily. I'm saying more along the lines of because then you're going to get people coming into it from big business. You're going to get these guys, these CEOs that are just there for making money, and they're going to come in and then they start giving themselves big bonuses, and this is this is what happens, and that's when you have a for-profit motive. It's just it gets kind of dicey when you're doing it for.
But then you'd have people that come in from big business. You're right. You'd have people that come in that know how to run a big business, and that's in all honesty, I don't agree with paying them all big bonuses at all.
Yeah.
I'm with you, but we need those people. We need those people that do run big business to come in and run big nonprofits.
Right.
And those typically are the ones who do run the really big nonprofits. They were the CEO of some massive for-profit corporation, and they bring that that nonprofit to the next level because nonprofits flounder.
Right.
There's nonprofits collapsing all the time because they don't have business sense. They don't have the right people running the organization. Therefore, they can't even make the impact that they're there to make.
Yeah, I see it as I think what you're getting at, and I agree with, is for example, teachers, and how teachers are literally the ones educating and developing the future human resource of this planet. They are the future of the planet, and yet they get paid pretty minimal comparingly, and thus does not attract maybe the best candidates for that position, which should be a very valued position. So it's you're kind of equating how much good is someone doing. They should be compensated for the good, and obviously that quote is, the air quotes around good is it could be debated and everything, but I think society can come to a conscious consensus of what is good and what is serving and what is not. With the information and the facts that are pouring out of the internet in this day and age.
And you got to think too, these evil corporations that are ripping oil out of the ground, whatever, are they really that evil? They've gotten society to a really, really high platform of quality of life that we've never had as a species before. So it's okay, this is what we had to do to get to this point. But now, what can we do now that we know better to evolve and move past this? And we know we have, energy resources that we can draw on, like solar or whatever, tidal, wind, all these different things to draw on. But I think it's just I don't think it's fair to call people at the top of an oil company evil or something like that, because they do provide a lot of service to humanity that's actually very beneficial.
It's a product of the system. It's a product of where we're at as
there has
a
to be some
society.
understanding. That's one problem with the people on the far left, is they're just the evil corporations, But at the same time, they have also brought us to, where we are today.
Yeah, I think taking a step back and looking at the whole picture and understanding what we understand from history and historical developments of people and just how we came to be, they're a product of what we are now. And I think not everyone, I shouldn't say that, but a lot of people are recognizing a need for change. And at first it starts kind of with people's minds and their ideas and ideologies and philosophies and consciousness. I think that's where the change kind of will have to happen first before we start seeing external results.
It's true. I mean, like nobody needs $1 million to live. Nobody. There's a Harvard study done back, I think, in the early 2000s where they said that if you reach $75,000 a year, that any money you make after that point is not going to make you any happier. Yeah. And that was, a Harvard study they did. It's probably higher now because of inflation, probably what, 85, 90, I don't know. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like it goes back to the question, how much is enough? How much is enough? How many yachts do you need?
And actually I want to take this into you, Taylor, because your background story to before Change Heroes is actually quite interesting. You even said it in one of your talks that I watched recently. I'm not sure if it was the TEDx talk that you did, TEDx in Kelowna. If you want to check out a really good talk by Taylor, go check that out. You were a bodybuilder. You were into real estate, had lots of money, had a great life going, a standard narrative life, I should say. What you even said, like, I went as far as I could in seeking pleasure externally.
Mm-hmm.
And can you elaborate on that and tell us more about that transition that you went through?
Sure. And the last closing thought on what we were talking about before is that I think we were talking about two very different things. I'm advocating for the upper echelon of nonprofits to be able to make what they're worth in comparison to what the organizations that their counterparts on the for-profit side. I'm not saying that anyone needs $1 million a year. You're right. And at the same time, there's some things that we need to factor in, like for someone to get the education to be running one of these massive businesses, that costs money. $75,000 a year if you have no debt is, you know what I mean? Like, but if you're sitting on like 6 years of Harvard Business School debt, then you would want to have that paid off, and that does take a higher salary. But so I'm in total agreement with you guys. The journey from being a 50 pounds heavier bodybuilder, real estate guy to this is really interesting. And what it was like this deeper yearning to get up every day and to know that to know that my resources and my time and my energy was put into making the world a better place. Because I don't believe that the typical economics that we have, let's take a step back. I believe that let's say, the way that we live our lives and consume things that are in plastic and drive our cars and whatnot, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Environmentalist at all here, but the way that we live, just living a normal life, is of detriment to the earth.
A North American life, especially.
Correct, Yeah, exactly. It just is. The amount of waste that we produce, the flights, I'm terrible for that because I'm usually flying for things all the time. The carbon footprint that we put on just by thinking that we're just doing normal is of detriment to the earth.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but what we typically look at is if we, let's say, tithe 10% of our money, or if we give 10% of our money away, that's typical. That's like, wow, you're doing great things, kind of thing. But the economics just don't add up. That won't compensate for what we're doing to the earth just by living, especially if we don't make that much money, let's say. So I wanted to be able to flip that, and I wanted 90% of the money that I made to go towards doing good. And I'm an extremist, so I then got to the point where I was like, I want every single cent that I make to be going towards benefiting the world in some way. And that's why I got really involved in social enterprise. I sat at the Harvard Social Enterprise Conference in 2011. It was the first time that I'd heard about this thing where you could build a business that did good, because before that, there's the paradigm is you're either nonprofit and you do good and you're fulfilled, but you don't make any money, or you're do for-profit and you're not fulfilled but you're making money, kind of thing. Those two things, and I didn't really agree with that big divide. And so, sitting in this Harvard Social Enterprise Conference, I was like, oh wow, there's this whole movement around creating a social enterprise, which is a for-profit business that is in place to solve a social problem, let's say. And that was a dream. It was like a pipe dream at the time. I was like, wow, it'd be so amazing to do this. And it took a lot of like introspection of finding what I say finding my enough. You know, because we can say the Harvard study says $75,000. If you make any more than that, happiness goes up very incremental, like it's very small kind of thing. I think what is it, like between 50 and 75 grand or whatever. I don't know what the sweet spot is, but I sat down at a table in Spain. I was traveling for a year after I sold my real estate company, and I was like trying to find myself. Let's say I was 28, and I sat at this table in the Canary Islands in Spain, and I said, I'm not getting up until I've decided what is enough. Because, and you guys may have felt this before, I noticed that I actually described it as like a disease, that I had this thing in my head that would never stop wanting more. You know, like I wanted to be a millionaire. You know, I really wanted, and then I remember hitting it and being like, yes, I'm so happy. I'm going to be so happy now. The next day being like, I'm totally tied to my business. I don't have any freedom. And this actually isn't that much money. Now that I bought a house and stuff like that, I think maybe I'll need 10 million. And I remember going, wait a second, I just worked 3 years for this, and I was happy for 24 hours. And that's happened to me so many times with bodybuilding competition, like doing really well in bodybuilding competition, being yes, and then being like, now I'm going to go for this other gold stupid trophy with a little naked man on it, you know, and that never stopped in all of these different areas. And so I was like, I have to stop this. This is a disease. It's like the disease of more, let's call it, more Titus or whatever. And so I sat down and I was like, I'm going to write down how much is enough to have in my bank account, how much is enough to have coming in every month. And then once I have that, I'm going to commit to not wanting any more for 4 years. So I was 28. I just turned, I think I just turned 28 in January. And I decided this is going to be my enough for 4 years till I'm 32. And the fascinating thing that happened right after that was as soon as that vacuum, this black hole of more was sealed, because I'd committed, I'm not adding any more. I'm not going to try to grow my net worth. I'm not going to try to do anything. I'm just going to say that's enough. And because I just wanted to enjoy my life, you know, instead of thinking always like, yeah, I got to make more money. You guys know what that feels like, right? I was like, I want to enjoy my life. So I sat down, this is how much as I want to make. And what inevitably happened was my focus stopped being internal and started being external. And the more kind of happened, but in a way cooler way, where it was like, how can I be of the most impact to the world? And that's what I started obsessing over. How can I impact as many people as humanly possible in a really quality way? And so that's when I started getting obsessed with fundraising. I started looking at the fundraising world and being like, oh, that doesn't work. How has no one revolutionized this industry? It's crazy. And started doing tests on my friends where I would send, one time I sent 25 of my friends, I sent them all $100 via e-transfer, $100 each. And I said, look, I'm sending you this $100. I want you to give it to a nonprofit. All you have to do is add $20 of your own money, give it to the nonprofit of your choice, and then make me a video telling me who you gave it to, why you gave it to them, and how it made you feel. And the reason for that is because I wanted them to feel how good it feels to give to a nonprofit, because they would start to get hooked and they would start to do it more. And ideally, they would start getting addicted to giving. Because the feeling that you get when you help your fellow man, whether it be in person or whether it be someone in Kenya with a school, or whether it be, a woman in Ecuador, that feeling is unparalleled. You don't get it from anything else. You only get it from service. And I was like, I want to give as many people that feeling as possible. So when we talk about like a fundraising platform, I don't look at it at all like, I really want you to give me $3.33 a day for 3 months. What I'm saying is, with you doing that, I'm going to give you the best feeling that you've ever had. And I'm going to give it to you likely 20, 30 years ahead of when you would start to get it. And then you're going to do it more and more and more. And then Float House, which you guys already do, or whatever you do, is going to incorporate some sort of a social responsible mission, some sort of a giving kind of component. And giving is going to be part of your financial decisions.
For sure. Oh, for sure. Like one thing we focus on, we don't have a lot of funds at Float House yet to be giving tons away yet, but we do. We do. And the one thing that I'm pretty big on is the downtown east side. We have something in our backyard which is like a human disaster walking around over here, and we're not doing a very good job as a community to do anything about it. And it's sitting right here. So we give. Mike and I don't even take a salary from Photos at all, zero. And we could, but we give some of this money to other charity organizations and things like that. And I think, I was going to ask you for the platform that we raise our money for. Can we use it for a downtown east side project? I think that's something that I'd be really passionate about for sure. Just seeing it every day and seeing, being down here and seeing what's going on.
Yeah. So it looks like it's, knock on glass wood. Looks like we're signing our first nonprofit partner that services the downtown east side.
That's awesome.
And that would potentially be up and running within the next 6 weeks, I would think,
Yeah.
to get it going. It's something that we started to do little initiatives here and there.
Right. And also the reserves, like the reserves in this country are
Yep.
awful. They're worse than third world conditions in a lot of these places. They don't even have water, and I think we could be doing so much more to help those people. And we're just getting started. And the one thing I just actually want to chat with you about is just like, how does somebody get started like that? Like, how did you get started up? Because I would love to create a foundation where we channel money into things like that. And I don't even know where to start yet, to be honest with you. I can make a business, but I don't know how to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. You and everyone else, we're all the same, right? Where how do you get started? How do you even take and this skepticism that our generation has around nonprofits, because we've heard all these horror stories, right? And because you're right in saying there have been some CEOs and some heads of nonprofit that have taken a lot of money and embezzled money. You know what I mean? Because humans run nonprofits and humans run for-profits, kind of thing. So it definitely has happened, and so we're right to be skeptical. So where you start, in my mind, how I started was I didn't know anything about the nonprofit world. It was really on my mind, and so I talked to a client of mine who was in real estate at the time. And I said, do you know anyone that knows a lot about nonprofits? Because I don't know anything, and I would like to know more. She said, yeah, I know this guy Zach White. He lives in Nanaimo or north of Courtney, and he knows everything about nonprofits. I said, perfect. Can I have his number? Called him up, and this is literally how everything started. So this is like perfect dovetail with your question of how did it go from bodybuilding real estate to this. This is the exact moment where I asked this woman, I said, I'm really interested in making sure my money is going to a sustainable place. I want to know about nonprofits. She said, you got to talk to this guy, Zach White. I said, great. I said, called him up. I said, Zach, I need to learn some things from you. Can we just meet up and have a coffee? So he drove to Nanaimo. I drove up to Nanaimo. I was living in Victoria at the time, so we met halfway. We sat there for 45 minutes, and he just talked about development and nonprofits in the charitable space. And I was like, wow, you know a lot about this, don't you? And he said, yeah. And I said, what about this, Zach? And this wasn't premeditated at all. I said, what about this, Zach? I'll buy you a ticket to Uganda, and I'll buy me a ticket to Uganda, and we'll go, and you just show me everything. Show me a bunch of different projects, because I really want to get involved, and I want to see it firsthand. And I want to learn as much as possible. But you have to promise me on that trip, it will take 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you teach me everything that you know about nonprofits. I know that sounds crazy to learn everything someone knows in 3 weeks, but you can spend a lot of time talking you can really, you can get started.
Totally.
And so we did that. 3 months later, we hopped on a plane, and we flew to Uganda. And I can hear some people thinking, well, I don't have that much money to put towards a trip to Uganda. What I was doing, I was in real estate at the time, so my income was higher than definitely what it is now. But I had practiced some of the same principles that you guys practice, where I did put 10% of my income away for charity, and so I would save that up. So every single check that I would get, I would first take 10% off, put it in a give account, kind of thing. I'd also take 10% off, put it in an investment account and whatnot. But I'd put it in this give account, and then would kind of build up, and then spend it on things like that, because I knew that would in turn be able to raise a lot more money for nonprofits, let's say, if I could see it all firsthand, let's say. And then I started telling people, actually for the tickets, I should say, I didn't spend my charity money on it. I started telling people what I was going to do, and I had a guy throw in $3,000 to help towards tickets. I had a bunch of people send money. I said, look, we're not a nonprofit, but we're going to go and check out all these different organizations. And so some people sponsored us. So we went to Uganda, went to Kenya, went to Egypt. In Uganda, we saw, I'll speed this up, a bunch of really life-changing projects, let's say. In Kenya is where we learned a lot about education. In Egypt, we visited Sudanese refugees and learned about their plight and whatnot. And came home, and after learning all that, then there was no going back. Once you've been there and seen it. And when you're in, you know that you guys are business guys. You know that you could build a business that could actually really transform the world. You know that your resources, mental resources, your energy resources could be doing something that's going to do really, really massive good in the world, which you guys are already doing. Do you know what I mean? You're spreading mindfulness, which I believe is all one and the same, and this is of paramount importance, is continuing this movement of people going inward and being meditative and getting in touch with their souls, let's say, and you're doing that.
Thank you.
You're like the perfect example of some people doing business in the right way. And from my
Thank you.
point of view, because I've gone for floats, I know how I feel after floats. I know how connected I feel after floats, and I know I get the best ideas. I just wish there was like I need a whiteboard with like a
We've
little.
actually thought about doing that, putting a whiteboard in the room, because people come out and they're like, "Give me a pen."
He wants one in the tank.
I want it in the tank. So
Oh, in the
it's like-
tank. The tank is like a giant whiteboard, you know. But I don't know. That'd be
So-
add to the.
That'd be a pain to clean.
somehow.
but-
Yeah.
Anyways, so went on this trip, came back, and that was the transformation. That was there was no going back after that.
Yeah.
And it was very shortly after that I sold the real estate company, did that trip, and made a big change.
That's
Cool.
awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's a
Thanks.
really very inspirational story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, so maybe we should. Sorry to jump in.
No.
Yeah.
He asked how do we get started. Not everyone's going to fly to Africa.
Right.
And I'm not recommending everyone does,
Yeah.
you know, because people are saying, well, the carbon emissions and blah, 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 why don't you just donate that money? I hear you guys saying that. It worked out well for me to go because it spawned Change Heroes, which has been great so far. And I think it could be doing a lot more. You know, we're never satisfied. Like, I think we could be 10 times as what we've done so far.
Yeah.
But how to get started? How you get started is, to be honest, it's not a plug for Float House, is go for a float and meditate on how you can get going, on what you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about anything, go meet with nonprofits. Get out there and, you know what I mean, there's a really cool organization called the Lipstick Project. Check it out, Lipstick Project is wonderful, run by a friend of mine named Lee, downtown East Side. If you're passionate about, you know, homelessness initiatives here, there's tons of nonprofits that you can Google downtown East Side, Vancouver nonprofits.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. And just go meet with them for like 15 minutes.
Mhm.
There are people doing incredible work. St. James Music Academy right down the street, wonderful nonprofit. They take kids from the downtown East Side, which is the poorest area in Canada, right? As you guys know.
Yeah.
And they take kids that are living in poverty or have learning disabilities or just having a real tough time, let's say, and they teach them how to play the cello and violin and classical music and give them an outlet, and they feed them after school, kind of thing. And that's a wonderful project that's going on. So there's lots of things, but it's about having the initiative and actually doing something.
Mhm.
You know, just going out and starting. Like you guys started. I saw a sign that said something about Float House, and you're partnering with someone.
Save
someone-
on Meats. So basically,
Yes,
the idea
right,
is
right.
token program, and we haven't actually talked a lot about that on the podcast actually, but it's pretty cool. We bought a bunch of tokens from Save on Meats, and from what I understand, the tokens just basically cover the costs of the production of like a breakfast sandwich, and you can go after your float, grab a token, and go
Yeah.
around the corner and find somebody who looks like they need a breakfast sandwich or a sandwich or something, give it to them, and they can go feed themselves. And we started doing something with the Salvation Army. And it was good, and I liked it, but we got so much backlash for that one, just because they're so like all the anti-gay stuff around Salvation Army in the States, especially. As soon as you said we were supporting Salvation Army, people were like,
Of course.
We're not coming to you.
yeah, we had people say we're not coming to you anymore, so we're like, oh, okay, we got to change our charity. And it's too bad because they do a really good thing, and they fed, we've done it twice, and
Hundreds of people.
we fed 350 people one day and then 400 the next time, which
Yeah.
is awesome. Which is one meal, but it does, those people come in and they rely on that meal. And, people were upset with us for supporting them. I'm like, well, see the bigger picture. We're feeding people on the downtown east side, But then we're just like, okay, well, that's pretty
another way to do
user-friendly.
it.
It's,
Yeah.
and he's got a good reputation, Mark, over there at Save On Meats,
Yep.
and he does a lot of work on the downtown east side as well. So
Yep.
that's why we went with them.
Yeah, and there's also lots of entry level where you don't even have to go meet with a nonprofit. There's this company across the street called Change Heroes, where you can raise $10,000
There
from
you
your
go.
laptop. You don't even have to be wearing pants.
Yeah.
That's right. So
know?
yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
huge. Yeah.
and it's cool because the way you've kind of broken it down with that, it is very palatable. It's not like it's a scary commitment at all, and it's something that I think is very achievable. And whether you think, oh, I could never do that. Well, why don't you try? Why don't you go and test it and test yourself and see if put yourself out there. Like that, when you put yourself out there for anything, like if you start a campaign with Change Heroes and you put yourself out there and go ask your friends, this is what I want to do, and if you accomplish that, it feels really good just for yourself knowing I did the goal I set out to do, and that creates momentum.
Absolutely.
And that's really strong stuff. Like
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions about just how to get started, you can absolutely email me, taylor@changeheroes.com.
Oh.
And I won't just recommend Change Heroes. Obviously, I'll say, here's a cool campaign. Like, we're doing a campaign right now that Royal Bank is a partner, and they are buying 4 trips to the Ecuadorian Amazon as incentive for people to run Change Heroes campaigns.
Wow.
So, and they'll be funding women's empowerment initiatives, and it's a $3,000 campaign rather than $10,000. So it's 33 people giving $1 a day for 3 months instead of $333 a day.
Right.
So it's an easier ask, and people can win a trip for 4 to the Amazon, which is pretty dope.
That's
Nice.
amazing.
Cool.
That's very, very cool. And that's the cool thing. Like when you've created this project, because it is such a great concept and idea, and it works, which is probably the most important
Yeah.
part of that. You've been getting a lot of good attention and media attention, and from pretty big organizations. I saw you spoke at We Day.
Yeah,
in
that's
front
a
of
trip.
thousands of people. I loved how you ended that, by the way, as Cole's knows, when you screamed at the crowd, like, "Are we not Change Heroes?"
Yeah.
And it was really cool.
Thanks,
Everyone
man.
goes,
That was a
"Yeah!"
blast.
I got to see you, like, man, I couldn't even imagine what that would be
just
like.
wound up, right?
Yeah. Oh, your
Totally.
energy must have like.
Yeah,
just
it's
absorbing
amazing.
it, but,
It's the warmest room you could ever speak in front of, because you walk
Sure.
out there and you're like, hello, and there's 18,000 kids, and they go, hello, bonkers. Yeah.
And then, but the cool thing is, like you mentioned, the 4-year-old and her brother that did a successful campaign, and then they were on CBC.
Yeah.
You know, so now not only are you guys, like, the people that are doing the campaigns are, getting this attention as well, which is crazy powerful. It's
Exactly,
awesome.
man. And what we really hope for is that when someone does a campaign, what's really interesting is their friends actually thank them for asking, kind of thing. It's not like, hey, can you please give me money? It's the antithesis of that. It's the friends kind of go, wow, thank you so much. I'm so stoked to build this school with you. And when they're done, we send them this virtual magazine that you can kind of flip through, and it thanks all their friends. It thanks the person who did it. It says, here's your school, gives them all of that feeling. And so then every single one of those donors gets that feeling as well.
Nice.
And what's really interesting, what we're seeing now is kind of like you're saying, obviously you feel great because you've accomplished your goal. But what's interesting is the ripple effect of it, because then you start hearing from all of the people that donated saying, hey man, that's awesome. How cool is it that you funded a school in Kenya? That's really incredible. And all the people on social media that saw you doing it and saw you hit your goal, they start pinging you, hey, by the way, I thought it was really cool that you funded that school. Hey, I thought that was really, really dope. The 4 and 9-year-old, they were on Forbes.
Right.
They're on Forbes.com,
Right.
on the front page of
That's
Forbes.com.
the one, sorry, yeah.
And you're right, they're on CBC.
Okay, cool.
And they're on all these publications. Imagine their lives. They're 4 and 9 years old, and they've continually heard reinforcements telling them that they're a good person, that they're good people, that they've changed the world. Now they've internalized that. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not going to change. Do you know what I mean? Like their life
Especially at that
trajectory,
age, right?
exactly,
So
is different.
impressionable. That's insane.
And imagine hearing that from all your closest friends
Yeah.
at this age. All your closest friends saying, you're a really good person. You did really good things. And you're like, oh, wow.
It's like self-esteem
that
set up
feels
for
great.
life.
And I want to be, and you just continue to want to do that.
Yeah,
And it is
yeah.
absolutely addictive.
It's true.
And we've had people doing multiple Change Heroes campaigns where people have funded 3 different schools, and every time they do it, their friends are like, oh, good, I was waiting for you to do another one.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's the different than, hey, can you please spare, a coffee a day kind of thing. It's like,
Yeah.
look, I'm giving you an opportunity to hop on this rocket ship because we're going to build a school in Kenya with or without you. I'd love for you to join. And people are like, thank you so much for asking me.
Yeah.
And I've never done something like this before.
And I think that
That's
brings a
pretty
huge
rewarding.
point up. Like, as human beings, we're so impressionable, and our behaviors are so repetitive. Like
Especially
we do.
at that age.
At all ages. Like we just repeat behavior after behavior. So if we can shift things so that people, you're right. Like we have these behavior like mentalities that whatever we're exposed to in our youth is going to kind of perpetuate as we get older. Just if we can change that, then. Man, it changes everything.
Yeah,
Changes
could
the
you
whole world.
imagine learning at that age,
Oh,
learning
no.
at the age of 7 that you can impact the lives of 1,000 people, kids just like you on the other side of the
Yeah.
world, and you can do it using technology. It's just like your decision making is completely different.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So it's very, very powerful stuff, man. And
Thanks, Daniel.
I want to get into more, but we're gonna have
Well,
to.
you guys can keep going if you want. If you
Well-
want to just switch spots with me, like honestly,
It's I think
if you want to wrap it up.
we'll wrap it up, but maybe we'll do a round 2 sometime in the future
Sure.
when things are
Yeah,
rolling
and
along.
to hopefully to bring everything full circle of what we were
Please.
talking about earlier, and I'm really glad we could have that really open discussion, is that I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm disagreeing with the position that nonprofits have been put in, because really they're handcuffed in a lot of ways from making the impact that they want to make. They're handcuffed by not being able to hire really talented people, because it's not just the CEO that should be making a bit more. It's their developers, it's their social media person. It's like every single person is getting asked to work for $40,000 a year and they can't make their rent. You know, I want nonprofits to thrive. I want them to have a predictable fundraising tool so they know that they've got their budget coming in within the first 2 months of the year, and they can actually go and execute. They can actually go and make the impact that they're making in the first place. Fully agree with you that no one needs to make $1 million a year. Massive advocate for that in the nonprofit realm or the for-profit realm. And I'm just an advocate for nonprofits, people that are involved in that space, ideally being rewarded for gearing their life towards something that's really going to benefit humanity. Even just making what they should make. It's like teachers, right? Nonprofits is a whole bunch of people that are in the same situations that teachers are in, where they're not making that much. They're working tons and tons of hours. We're putting it on them to educate our kids. Yeah. We're putting it on these people in nonprofits to change what's happening in the downtown east side, yet we're not giving them the resources to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
But no, I should clarify. I'm definitely not against the for-profit model 100%. Yeah. And I think it is really smart, because you are going to, again, drive more people into that field. Now you can actually make money as opposed to just scraping by on a nonprofit.
Well, how cool would it be is like totally our economics flipped, in the sense that our economics flipped to, you know, that this is like, yeah, we're gonna make our living fixing the ails of the world. Like, you know, like if we can.
Absolutely.
We'll change the whole world, and then we'll have this perfect world, and then everyone will be unemployed. But by that time, we can just dance in our utopian beaches.
Yeah. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Cool. Well, everybody who's listening to this.
Exactly. Is Utopia a place?
Oh, it's in here.
Oh, okay.
It's in here.
All right.
I'm pointing to my heart.
Finish it off with a deep one.
Yeah. Go into your heart, people.
Yeah.
Changeheroes.com, ChangeHeroes.com, at Change Heroes for Twitter, at Destroy Normal to follow Taylor Conroy in person, because I'm sure you're tweeting lots of good stuff there.
At Andy Zimbabwe.
And at Andy Zimbabwe. And mine's Mike Zimbabwe, and it's all good. It's just there, so I got to use it more. But Taylor, thank you so much for coming on Vancouver Real. We really appreciate it, and I'm really glad we had this opportunity to have a real talk. Because I even, you know, when you're on Global and CBC and this kind of stuff, you get 7 minutes, you know. And actually, to be honest, man, that Global interview, those hosts were bugging the shit out of me. They were really kind of
that was just a while ago.
They were just so like
quirky.
Yeah, and trying to make it comical, but they're not funny, and it just, I don't know, it just completely took it away. So I like how we are able to put something out there that's uninterrupted, that we can actually have a real discussion and go into depths of things, and so a long-winded thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Awesome.
Really appreciate
Cool.
it. Honored.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And until next time,
to whatever is.
To whatever is.
All right. Cool.